why people should be Orthodox, and also what are the issues that just people in general are facing, but specifically men are facing today. So the first question I had in mind that we can kind of talk about, because I kind of have my own thoughts regarding this, but aside from the fact that it is true, because a lot of people, especially when they get into Orthodoxy, they don't really think this way, or any religion, they don't really think, oh, it's true. They think of it as like, oh, how useful it is or how based it is, right? Aside from the fact that it is true, why should one become Orthodox, and what does it do to help you with the problems and the issues that we face in the world? Like, what is your take on this?
Yeah, I think for guys like us, we're mainly concerned with, this or that issue. Is it true? Is it false? If you're really interested in what's true, then these kinds of things will definitely resonate with you. But there's all these other things that go along with it, right? I mean, it's not just a matter of objective truth and propositional knowledge. It's a question of really a renovation of your whole life. And so in my experience, it's something that is constantly sort of invading and hammering at me when I am always wanting to go off in my own direction, be kind of sinful, be self-absorbed, be concerned with what I want. Like something will happen to kind of constantly sort of break you out of that and bring you back to confession, bring you back to communion, and a lot of that's providence. A lot of it is spiritual warfare. All that stuff's going on. So I think that what am I trying to say? It's like the true version of a 12-step self-improvement program. Like it's not, I mean, I'm not trying to reduce it to that. It's not just some moral thing that makes you a better person or whatever, but like all the red pill dudes. And when I see, the manosphere and the Tate sphere and the, the people that hate them, and it's like all the things that these people are grasping for, that like they'll get a little piece of the truth. And then it's like, that's it. Right. So I think that really what we have is that the totality picture of what all of these different spheres are looking for and grasping for, we have that. And so why would I be Orthodox? Because I mean, beyond it being true, like I can't see any other narrative or mythos or story that actually makes sense of the past, my life, the future, your life, right? What's going on in the world, geopolitics. Like it really has the big picture explanation for everything. Like I said, it's going to force you to constantly work to improve yourself in the most literal sense of the word. It forces you to reorganize your relationships, like how you deal with people. I don't mean in the sense of like, are you mean or are you nice? That's not what I'm talking about. But I'm talking about dealing with people in a just way. Are you being just to people? Are you being loving in the true sense? Are you being humble in the true sense? Because I think, you and I have a conception of what it is to be humble, what it is to be fair to people that's very different than a lot of other people. And I think that they see us as mean or as very matter of fact or whatever. But for us, like that's how we should treat people, right? We should treat people in a way that's loving but firm, right? So I think that a lot of people have different, just way off conceptions about how we ought to operate with people, how we should treat people. And Orthodoxy really does reorient you to treat people in a different way. But that doesn't mean that, you're not nice. Like you're going to be super nice now. You're going to be super this, and you're going to talk like this to people. That's not what humility is. That's not what spirituality is. That's a false affectation that people have to give the appearance of being pious and humble, piety signaling and all this kind of stuff. And, if you look in scripture, there's one text that always comes to mind when I think about this. I think it's in Luke. It's where Jesus says that the Pharisees, they judge people on these kind of externals. And he says that the things that are highly esteemed amongst men, he says, are abominable to God. So what are the things that are highly esteemed amongst men? Going along to get along, being nice, right? This kind of stuff. And that's what Jesus says is God doesn't care for that. So I think what I'm getting at is that in the long run, orthodoxy is it's going to constantly force you to reorient yourself in everything in your life, like the way that you relate to people, the way you relate to God, the way that you look at the world, your worldview, your paradigm, how you are trying to better yourself. All of those things come into play. And my life has definitely been better. I mean, the struggles and the problems don't go away. You get different problems. And, you and I did a stream a long time ago that a lot of people really could have benefited from if they had paid attention to it. We were talking about traps along the way, because when you become Orthodox, it's not like, oh, okay, I'm Orthodox now, everything's good. Now there's a whole new set of traps and temptations that you have that a lot of us have seen. A lot of us have seen people go down, oh, I'm going to be this radical, true Orthodox person. Oh, I'm going to go into Romanides to the extreme. Oh, I'm into David Bentley Hart and universalism. Oh, I'm into whatever else, right? There's all of these different pathways that will lead you off of the correct path. And so many people get caught up in that. Even when you warn them about it, they go down these roads. Anyway, that's not germane really to your question. I feel like I'm rambling, but that's the thoughts I have on the spot. Like, what is it? Why would I do it? Well, beyond it being true, it's really like the healing of your whole being ultimately. But it's not something that happens right away. Somebody was saying to me the other day, you were mean in a comment to somebody on Twitter, so Orthodoxy hasn't changed you at all in 4, 5, or 6 years. And I'm like, so if I make one mistake in a Twitter, which by the way, I don't even think what I said was that mean, but let's say I was being mean on a tweet. Does that invalidate all of you know what I mean? All of one's spiritual journey for 5 or 6 years? That's crazy.
Yeah.
You're going to be battling the passions your whole life. I mean, there's monastics who said that, they were still struggling with lust to their deathbed.
Yeah, a couple of things I'd also like to add with regards to this is that for the last couple weeks, maybe even months, I've kind of been reading some texts and articles on virtue ethics, and I think it's kind of is relevant on this topic because a lot of people think when it comes to ethics and morality and being a good person, they think if you do XYZ good actions, a lot of people think that doing good things is like a checklist, XYZ checklist and all of that, but it's about the character and disposition that the things that you do reflects and harmonizes with, right? So they think a lot of people just assume that one action you do kind of just defines your whole character, right? Whereas really it's your character that defines your actions in the first place. It's the other way around.
Yeah.
And with Orthodoxy, it is that character, that disposition, you're trying to restore that disposition to the virtues that God himself naturally has that are communicated to you. And that's what repentance is. And this is why people will be making mistakes, but they will also be trying to attain the likeness of God through asceticism, through fighting against the passions and so on and so forth. So there's this very wrong conception that even a lot of Orthodox people have regarding this. Another thing that I'd like to note is that when it comes to what is a true religion, what is not, a lot of people look at it by, how based it is. And in that sense, Orthodoxy is good on that front. But the issue is a lot of people, they try to look at what the true religion is by looking at the evil and the demonic stuff in this world. And then they say to themselves, okay, which religion combats against this stuff the best? That's not the most correct way to look at it. You'd rather want to look at it in this way. You want to look at it in the way of, okay, what religion allows me to and gears me to combat against it in the best possible way? Because a lot of people, for example, they look at the evil things in the world and then they become convinced that there's a God, like Andrew Tate, for example, right? But then he becomes Muslim because in his opinion, the most sensible religion when it comes to morality and stuff like that is Islam. Well, one might, for example, argue whatever choice he makes, right? Whatever choice anyone makes, they might be deceived by these demonic beings that they're trying to get away from, right? I mean, demonic stuff isn't just like in the movies where you get possessed or a demon just jumps into your face and scares you and does a little cool jump scare. That's not really how it works. It's deception, right? And so people can be deceived if they act on their own accord instead of protecting themselves against these influences. And so this, I think, is something that a lot of people miss out on when it comes to looking at, okay, what is the true faith? Why should I be in this religion? And so I will say, and I will definitely agree with you, and I will kind of add that the reason why one should be Orthodox is because Orthodoxy really gears you against the demonic forces, demonic delusions. And aside from being the truth, it is the one religion that allows you to do this and allows you to develop, and even claims to develop you into having the same virtues and character that God himself has, which is a very radical thing to say. But this is just an affirmation of man being made not only in the image, but also in the likeness of God. And at the end of the life of man is to be deified by the grace of God, right? So that Orthodoxy is really even the only religion that even claims to do something like this. And this is how I think people should kind of look at it, what it can really do for them in a sense that it really matters, not in the sense of, oh, this religion is going to make me a lot of money. No, this religion is going to really develop your soul in the proper way, because your body's going to die. Your earthly, the money you have on the earth is going to go away, but your soul is going to, still going to continue living. And the kind of the treasures that you have in your soul, that's what's going to matter for eternity, really. And that's going to define the kind of character you have, both bodily and spiritually, is kind of how I will see this.
Yeah, I think Islam is a good example of a situation where I was thinking about this the other day. Like, it doesn't heal you in any way internally. There's no notion of like the interior man being cleansed and the interior man, ridding himself of vice and attaining virtues. But, one thing that Jesus is always concerned with, like I was saying in that text in Luke, is the internal state. Like, you can fool everybody with doing a bunch of externals, right? You can externally appear to be pious, and you can externally tweet about your prayers and how much you pray, and you can tweet your public prayers all day long. And even though Jesus says don't do this, he says to go and pray in your inner room or in your heart, right, in your nous. Then how is that religion going to do anything other than make me into some kind of weird hypocrite, right? Where I'm just doing my religious actions for worldly status because I think it'll make me cooler, get me, 4 wives, whatever Islam thinks, right? That Allah will bless me and I'll have a lot of money, or I don't know what, I'll be a sheikh with a bunch of oil platforms. I don't know, but none of that really changes or affects or helps you in an interior way. So it's not that those things are wrong, right? There's nothing wrong with exterior blessings or the world or anything like that. That would be Gnostic and going in a different direction. And a lot of Protestants get into this really super pietistic mode where it's all about, they're just sitting around obsessing all day long about their inner devotion and, their inner state. And to me, that's also kind of a weird opposite extreme. So I think that the classical practice of Orthodoxy gives you a notion of the body is good, but it has a place in a hierarchy. The soul is more important than the body, and the soul should steer the body, but that doesn't make the body bad, right? But in Islam, there's not really any notion of this healing of the interior man and ridding it of the vices and attaining the virtues. So it's just odd to me that you have the whole religion based around this idea. And to me, it's sort of like the, other quote monotheistic religions. They just create people who are externally doing things and they never internally heal.